I had a pretty normal childhood. I went to school, I had birthday parties, I had friends. And when I got to high school, I started dating boys. I had tons of crushes, and I found dating pretty fun. But then came senior year of high school, and that's when my life changed forever. But before I go on, make sure you like and subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any more creepy content. Thanks, guys! I had recently undergone a big breakup with my ex-boyfriend when I started senior year of high school. His name was Adam, and he was pretty much the biggest jerk. Don't ask me why I fell for him. It probably had something to do with the fact that he was the captain of the basketball team, and was also probably the hottest guy in our class. Anyway, during the school break, I asked him to hang out at the mall with me, but he told me he was busy. His tone of voice over the phone was also really suspicious, and I thought I heard a girl's voice in the background. I immediately stormed over to his house and caught him cheating on me. He was kissing another girl in my class. Well, I wasn't going to stand for it. I broke up with him right on the spot, and I'm all the better for it. He was always pretty mean, and he tended to compare me to girls who were skinnier and prettier than me. Not that that matters, but his words had still hurt. Anyway, by the time school break was over and senior year was about to start, I had gotten over my breakup with Adam, and I was ready for a good, healthy relationship, unlike the toxic one I had just suffered from. The thing was, everyone in my class was either taken or a jerk just like Adam. It seemed I would be spending my final year in high school as a single woman. That is, until my first history class, because that's when I spotted him. I was in class, just writing down notes while the teacher spoke in that annoying drawl of his, and then I noticed there was a new kid in our class. He was sitting in the corner by himself, and when I first laid eyes on him, I felt my heart stop beating. He was gorgeous. Like, probably the most handsome guy I'd ever seen, in person, at least. He was even more handsome than Adam, and that's saying something. But he also looked really shy, and he seemed to be the kind of guy who was awkward. I felt sorry for him, and decided I would help him out on his first day of school. When class was over, I walked up to him and introduced myself. "Hi, I'm Mandy," I said. "What's your name?" The guy seemed shocked to see me talking to him. "Oh, hi, I'm Callum." "Nice to meet you, Callum. Did you just move here?" "Yeah, just last week, actually. It's pretty nerve-wracking being the new kid," he said nervously. I smiled. "Don't worry, I'll help you out. Come on, I'll introduce you to my friends." And after that first encounter, we pretty much had a huge crush on each other. Before long, literally within a week of him starting school, I had asked him out on a date, and he had said yes. I was so happy, and I was ready to move on from Adam and all my other horrid ex-boyfriends. I took him to a nearby amusement park, and we had a blast. It was so fun, and it was so easy to talk with him. I didn't feel self-conscious like sometimes with my other past boyfriends. With Callum, it was so easy. Things were perfect. He always treated me nice, and I could trust him with just about anything. He was funny, too. He was the perfect boyfriend. But I suppose I should have realized it was a little too perfect. We had been dating for about 2 months when something happened that changed everything. We were at a party, and I was with my best friend and her boyfriend. Callum was there, too. They were chatting about their crazy exes, and they were sharing all sorts of stories. "What about you?" my best friend asked Callum. "What about your exes?" "I only had 2 exes, said Callum. "Ooh, tell us about them." Callum cleared his throat. Well, their names were Holly and Samantha. They were okay, I guess. I only dated them for a few months back in my old school. Then he chuckled. "But they're nothing compared to Mandy." He smiled, and I leaned over to kiss him on the cheek. "See, I told you things were too perfect." Well, when I got home from the party and said goodbye to Callum, I still had those 2 names on my mind. Holly and Samantha. Callum had seemed dismissive when he said the names of his ex-girlfriends, but I wanted to know more about them for some reason. I was curious. I know, that's probably not a healthy way to act in a relationship, but I'm not gonna lie. So I ended up searching their names. I didn't have their last names, so I just typed in the school Callum had gone to, and sure enough, an article had popped up on them. But what I saw made my jaw drop. 2 girls are now missing from the Sunaway School, the article said. I was shocked. Missing? Why hadn't Callum mentioned that? I clicked on the article. It said, Holly Anderson and Samantha Carey have been missing for over a year, and they also both happen to go to the same school. Police investigations have led to nowhere, but parents are still hoping they will find their daughters. Friends say it's not like Holly nor Samantha to disappear like this. Our hopes and prayers go to the family of those missing. I almost couldn't believe what I was reading. Both of Callum's exes were missing. That was a strange coincidence. A small voice in the back of my head said that perhaps it wasn't a coincidence. Oh my God, what if Callum had something to do with him going missing? But then I had laughed the thought away. No way, Callum wouldn't hurt a fly. He was kind and sweet, and I couldn't believe I would even consider the possibility that he would have hurt his ex-girlfriends. But still, it was strange that he hadn't mentioned they were missing. That would have been the perfect story to share at a party. But I guessed maybe he was still shocked from the disappearance of his exes. I decided to give him the benefit of the doubt and not bring it up with him. For a few weeks after the incident, things were going smoothly. I was really getting comfortable with Callum. And I know this is embarrassing, especially since we hadn't known each other for long, but I was really thinking of marrying him. Like, I was even thinking about what we would name our children. Crazy, I know. Anyway, Callum invited me over to his house. He said his parents were out on a business trip, and we had the house all to ourselves. When I arrived, he gave me a tour of every room. He was pretty rich. And then when we passed in the hallway, I asked him about the basement. "Oh, don't worry about that," he said. I was confused why we couldn't take a look at the basement. We had seen every other room in his mansion-like house, but I just ignored it. We retired to his room to watch a movie. I kept hearing noises and odd thumps, but when I asked Callum, he said they had rats in the house. I thought it was strange. The noises didn't sound like rats. They sounded like voices, but I chose to ignore it and eventually fell asleep. When I woke up, I saw Callum wasn't there. The room was empty. The TV was still on, so I switched it off. I wondered where Callum was, so I decided to go searching for him. I looked everywhere, the kitchen, the living room, even the backyard. But there was no sign of him. Then I walked past the basement door, and I saw that it was open and left ajar. I knew Callum had told me not to go in there, but I couldn't help it. I was curious. And besides, he was probably down there. I walked down the stairs, each step creaking on the wooden staircase. It was completely dark down there. I couldn't see a thing. Finally, I managed to find a light switch. I flicked the switch on, but what I saw made my stomach drop. The basement was full of dolls. Like, I couldn't be surprised if there were 1,000 in the small basement alone. They were stacked neatly on shelves, all of their creepy eyes staring right back at me. They were the kind of dolls you saw in antique stores, as well as horror movies. They were starting to freak me out. Why were there so many dolls down there? It didn't make any sense. I walked around in a daze. Surely there was some logical explanation to this. Maybe his parents were doll manufacturers? But then why were they down in the basement? I walked forward and spotted 2 dolls that were surrounded by a glass casing and had a special light shining on them. It was like the kind of thing you saw at a museum, except inside was not an ancient artifact, but 2 old dolls. I peered closely and was shocked to find they had a name tag. The one on the left was called Holly, and the one on the right called Samantha. I felt like throwing up. Holly and Samantha, Callum's exes who had disappeared. It couldn't be a coincidence that these dolls were named after them. I was starting to get really scared, and I suddenly wanted to get out of here, straight away. I turned to head back up the staircase and go home, but saw the door had been shut, and standing there was Callum. "Callum," I asked nervously, "what's going on?" Callum smiled, but his grin was evil. I felt my heart beat rapidly as he walked down the stairs towards me. "I see you found my little collection," he said. "Why are those dolls named after your exes?" I asked. "And why didn't you tell me your exes went missing?" Callum chuckled. "Oh, well, you see, it's kind of a hobby of mine. I've been collecting dolls for a while now. And whenever a girl breaks up with me, well, I just can't bear to part with them. I always love them too much. So I keep them in that doll." "What do you mean, keep them in the doll? Are you insane?" I shrieked. "I trap their soul," he said. "I take their soul and put it in their dolls, and I get to keep them forever then." "That's it?" I said. "I've had enough. I'm going home, and we're over. I'm done with you." Callum looked sad, but then he brightened up. "Oh, it's fine, because now you can join Holly and Samantha." Suddenly, he lunged at me, but I managed to get out of the way. He was trying to kill me. I screamed and ran upstairs. He grabbed my legs and I fell over, but then I had a sudden idea and decided to wreck his careful shelves full of dolls. I pushed them all to the floor. and Callum shouted out in pain as his precious dolls were damaged. While he cried for his dolls, I ran out of the house and kept running. I managed to get home, tell my parents, and they immediately called the police. As it turned out, Holly and Samantha were still alive. They had been stuck in a secret room in Callum's house. The noises I'd heard before were them calling for help. I was thankful they were alive, but also so sorry they had to suffer for so long. Callum was arrested for kidnapping the other girls and attacking me, and now he's in jail. I have to say, I never expected Callum to be such a creep. I guess this just goes to show that looks can be deceiving. So make sure you're always careful before you step into someone's house, or date them for that matter.
Have you ever felt so happy you didn't know what to do? Like there was so much joy and you just wanted to scream because, well, what else was there to do? I was having the best Friday ever. I couldn't believe she smiled at me and gave me her number. I've never been bold enough to go after what I want, if you know what I mean. But I gazed at Emma during Mr. Hellman's boring literature class. I felt a spark and an urge to just send her a note. It said, "Hey, I can't stop staring at you. I've liked you for a while. Can I have your number?" I expected her to just throw it away, but she sent one back. I feel the same way. And she wrote her number at the bottom. I took out my cell phone and sent her a message right away just to make sure she wasn't kidding. She replied with a smiley face, then turned around and smiled at me, so I was sure it was her. As I walked home, I felt like dancing through the street. I opened my door and shouted, "I'm home, what's for dinner?" Well, guess what? I don't need food because I'm in love. They all looked at me and rolled their eyes. "Hi, Kevin," said Gloria. Gloria and Chelsea are my older twin sisters. They're so identical that only my mom and I can tell them apart. They have black hair and mysterious green eyes, just like my mom. I have red hair and blue eyes, sort of like Chucky, but a little more handsome. When I was about 5 years old, my dad left, and I haven't seen him since. It's been just the four of us. I guess I'm the man of the house now. I walked over to the dining room table where my sisters were seated, playing some weird type of board game. "What are you so excited about?" Gloria asked. "Well, it seems that the love of my life actually likes me back," I replied. "Yeah, and I'm a bowl of tomato soup," Chelsea laughed. "No, guys, I'm serious. This girl I've been crushing on since 6th grade actually gave me her number and smiled at me," I replied. "That means nothing," scowled Gloria. They both looked upset. I tried not to read into it too much since girls are like that sometimes. I forgot about dinner and went straight to my room to text Emma. I asked her if she'd like to go to watch a movie with me the next day. She agreed, and I didn't think the day could get any better. I went back downstairs to throw it in my sisters' faces. "I'm going to watch a movie with Emma tomorrow night. You still think she doesn't like me?" I laughed. They exchanged a quick glance, and Gloria looked at me with a mischievous grin. "We have a big enough TV here. Why don't you just invite her over so we can all meet her?" At the time, I didn't think that was a bad idea. I didn't have money to take her out anyway. I quickly texted her to see if she would agree to the change in plans. Surprisingly, she didn't seem nervous at all. She didn't hesitate to say yes. Did she really like me that much? Flash forward to Saturday morning. I woke up to Gloria's gentle tugging at my shoulders. "Hey, bro, wake up. We've decided that it's Little Brother Appreciation Day," she said. "What?" I replied, rubbing my eyes. "Here, we brought you breakfast in bed. It's your favorite, pancakes, bacon, and many other things," said Chelsea. "Is it my birthday? Did I forget?" I said. I thought that I was still dreaming. They placed a platter of all my favorite foods on my bed. I picked up a glass of orange juice and spilled a little on my pillow. "Don't worry, I'll get that for you." Gloria jumped up right away and wiped it with a napkin. After I enjoyed my breakfast, they wiped my mouth and took the empty tray away. "We'll be back in a while. We're just going to finish all your laundry and do your chores. Then we'll clean your room and maybe give you a pedicure." Chelsea grinned as they walked away. I was very confused, but happy. I mean, who wouldn't be? My whole life, I've referred to them as the evil twin sisters because they always leave everything for me to do. I got out of bed, showered, and got ready for the exciting day ahead. It was only 10 o'clock, but I couldn't wait for 6 o'clock when Emma would finally be here. I sat down and got started on my math homework. After a few excruciating minutes of math problems, Chelsea and Gloria walked in with some scented candles and massage oils. "Ladies, have you lost your minds?" I asked. No, we're bringing the spa to your room. We told you that today is all about you. You've done enough homework. We'd like you to relax for the rest of the day, Gloria replied. They led me to my bed and asked me to lie down. After a while, my room smelled like apple cinnamon cookies, and I felt so relaxed that I almost forgot all about Emma. After about half an hour of the best massage I have ever experienced in my life, my sisters left the room and I fell asleep, but only for a few minutes. No, I forgot to ask Emma if we're still on tonight. I looked around my room. It was the cleanest it had ever been. What had gotten into my sisters? I quickly called Emma, and she said she'd be a little late because she had to pick her little brother up from karate class. I went to the living room and sat on the couch between my sisters. They quickly handed me the remote and told me I could choose whatever I wanted. This was weird too because they never let me watch what I want. Gee, guys, I'm having such a great day. This date with Emma is going to make things even more perfect, I said. The twins looked annoyed. Do you really need her to come over, though? It's going to ruin everything we've planned for you, Chelsea answered harshly. Again, I didn't read into this too much because, like I said, girls are strange sometimes. At 6 o'clock, my heart began racing. I knew Emma said she'd be late, but at least she'd be here soon. Finally, the doorbell rang. I jumped up and ran to the door. My sister stood behind me even though I motioned for them to leave the room. Hi, Emma. Thanks for coming, I said nervously. Thanks for having me over, she smiled. Hi, Emma, my sisters said together. They all went to the living room together. The snacks were already prepared, so we just had to choose a movie. Hey, Kevin, why don't you choose the movie? Chelsea and I want to talk to Emma about something, said Gloria. Okay, I replied. They were gone for at least 10 minutes, but when they came back, Emma looked a bit startled. Are you okay? I said to Emma. Yes, I'm fine, she replied. She looked scared, but I tried not to overthink. Luckily, my sisters left us alone for a while. We held hands, and when it was time for her to leave, I tried to kiss her goodbye, but she wouldn't let me. I guessed it was too early. The next week at school was even more confusing. On Monday morning, as I was opening my locker, Emma walked up to me and quietly said, Hey, Kevin, I'm sorry I didn't let you kiss me. I was trying to process everything, and I wasn't sure whether we should be together. But I've thought about it, and I'm willing to be with you even though you have a serious disease. I really like you, and it doesn't matter to me, she said. A serious what? I replied. A disease. I can't remember the name, but your sisters told me when I came over on Saturday night. They said you were too afraid to tell me, and you asked them to instead, she said. What? I began speaking, but before I could finish, she interrupted me. What I'm trying to say, Kevin, is that it doesn't matter to me. I care about you, and I won't let this disease get in the way, she finished. I was unable to say anything, so I just nodded. I grabbed my books, went to class, and pretended that everything was fine. When I got home that afternoon, I went straight to my sister's bedroom to find out what was going on. I didn't even bother to knock. I just barged right in. You told Emma that I have an incurable disease? I bellowed. They looked at me with puzzled eyes, and then Chelsea calmly said, Kevin, come closer. Sit down. We have something very serious to talk to you about. I did as she asked, but really, I just wanted to stifle them with their pillows. We know a lot about Emma, a lot that you don't know, and this is why we were a bit upset when we found out you'd be seeing each other. I don't really know how to break this to you, Kevin, but Emma is crazy. She's been to many psychologists for her issue, but nobody really knows what to do or how to help her. I overheard her mother speaking with our principal about it. We think you should stay away from her, said Gloria. When she came over, you took her away for 10 minutes. What were you talking about? I asked angrily. We just told her to take good care of you and not to hurt your feelings. That we will defend you if she does anything wrong to you. We were just looking out for you. We were doing what good sisters should. I mean, you'd do it for us, wouldn't you? Gloria replied. None of this makes sense to me, I said as I walked away. After I had calmed down a bit, I sent a message to Emma. It read, Why did you make up that story about my sisters? Of all the stupid things you could have done to me, this is the worst. I care about my family, and you're trying to ruin us. I'm not making up anything. Did you talk to your sisters? She replied instantly. Yes, I did. And all I found out is that you're nothing but a liar. And to think, I actually liked you, I replied and slammed my phone on my desk. I was so angry. I thought I had met the girl of my dreams, but she turned out to be a dishonest psycho. I stayed alone in my room for the rest of the night while drowning in my depressing thoughts. The next day, school went by in a blur, until the few minutes before my last class. Emma approached me, and I had to admit that she looked really sad. Her hair was in a mess, and she looked like she hadn't slept. "Kevin, I know you don't want to talk to me, but just listen to this." She pulled out her phone and put it next to my ear. It was a recording of her speaking to the twins. It went like this. "Emma, why did you lie and tell Kevin I was crazy? You told me he had a disease, then you lied to make it seem like everything was wrong with me. Is he even sick?" "Gloria, Kevin is mine, and I'm not going to share him. I made up all these stories to stop you from becoming his girlfriend. I can tell you this now because he already believes you're crazy and wants nothing to do with you." "Emma, he's your brother. What do you mean you want him?" "Gloria, he's the only boy I've ever loved, and we will be together forever. Now go to hell." "Chelsea, Kevin is mine, and I don't really want to share with you, Gloria. You're always trying to get your way. We've shared everything in the past, but I want him for myself. Kevin loves me more. I've always been his favorite anyway." "Gloria, shut up. Kevin is mine." The rest of the recording was distorted and noisy. It seemed like the girls had gotten into a fight and Emma left them to continue alone. I was shocked beyond belief. I couldn't think, so I dropped everything I was holding and sat on the floor. I pinched myself to make sure I wasn't dreaming. It all made sense now. This is why they were being so nice to me. Emma calmly sat next to me. "It's fine. I forgive you, but I don't think I can be with you because this situation is too messy." She stood up and walked away. That night was certainly the weirdest night of my entire life. After confronting my sisters and getting into a huge fight, my mom came between us and explained the truth. Apparently, I was adopted and that this is why I look nothing like my family. My mom and dad took me in to raise me into the man they'd want to marry my sisters. My father eventually realized this was a crazy idea and he left the dysfunctional family. My mom explained that because she took me in, I would have to repay her by eventually marrying the twins. I had lost the girl of my dreams, and now my family.
Hi, my name is Amanda. I'm 35 years old and I'm originally from Australia. I know I may not look like I'm a 35-year-old woman, but trust me, that's the truth. I'm also a secret spy, and I've been working undercover to... Okay, no, that's not true. You've probably guessed that. My name isn't Amanda. I'm not 35 years old. I'm not Australian. My real name is Lily, and I am 16 years old. That's the truth. You're probably wondering why I just started lying to you for seemingly no reason. But let me tell you, there is a reason. There is a reason why I can only lie, and I can't tell the truth. But first, we have to start from the beginning, to where it all began. But before I go on, make sure you like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. If you do, you will get 5 years of good luck. Trust me, it really works. And I'm not lying about that. When I was very young, I suffered from a traumatic experience that caused me to only lie. It triggered something in my neurological system that led me to only lie. I literally cannot tell the truth. There's something about the truth that just makes me disgusted. I hate telling the truth. It sends my nerves on edge. So that is why I always lie. You're probably wondering what kind of traumatic experience could cause such a response. Well, let me tell you. When I was 8 years old, my parents sold me off to a child trafficking ring. I don't know why they did it. I don't know why they would sell their own daughter. But they did, and I developed trust issues and damages to my mental health because of that. I felt like everyone was lying to me, especially since my parents had. And after that, I always tended to tell lies. We went to the park, and I was so excited because my parents and I rarely hung out. This time we were finally going to have a nice day out. They took me over to the lake in a quiet part of the park, and they gave me an ice cream. I was licking the ice cream, enjoying it while ducks drifted across the lake, when suddenly someone grabbed me from behind. I kicked and screamed and called for my parents, but they did nothing. They just watched as the man grabbed me. I saw the man hand over a briefcase, and my parents opened it to reveal stacks and stacks of cash. Then my parents glanced at me and looked away, and that was the last time I ever saw them, right as they were selling me off to child traffickers. After that, the man took me to a van and locked me in the back. I was so young and I had no idea what to do, but I just started screaming and screaming. The man yelled at me to quit screaming, and then I heard someone else start to shout. There was a tiny window in the back of the van, and I looked through it. It was a policewoman. I felt my heart leap with joy. "Help me! I yelled. The policewoman spotted me and she immediately called backup, and by the end of the day, I was safe and the man was arrested. Meanwhile, my parents had escaped to who knew where. When I told the police what had happened, they almost couldn't believe that my own parents would sell me. I couldn't believe it either. I was put into foster care. Ever since that moment, something changed in my head. I closed off from my surroundings. I went back into my shell. I trusted no one. I was never adopted by a family because I just wasn't a friendly girl, and I told lies all the time. About little things, too. Sometimes I would tell my foster family that I had seen a squirrel in the tree when I hadn't seen anything. Other times I would lie about bigger things, like saying that I was lactose intolerant when I wasn't at all. No one could understand why I kept lying. I lied and lied and lied, and there was no reason for it. But then one of my foster parents called a therapist to take a look at me, and eventually they figured out why I kept lying all the time. It was because of my parents. As I've already explained it to you, it was because of the selling incident. The therapist tried to treat me to help me overcome my mental illness, but it didn't work. I just kept lying. I thought I would never be adopted by a family. I believed that I would have to drift from foster home to foster home for the rest of my life. But then, one day, a couple came to my home. I remember spotting them through the window, and I thought they looked really nice. When they entered the house and waved hi to me, I smiled and waved back. I really liked the look of them. The woman walked up to me and spoke. "Hi there, what's your name? Caroline?" I lied. My foster dad suddenly appeared. "Lily, what did I tell you about telling lies?" he said. Then he looked apologetically to the couple. "Sorry about that. Her real name is Lily." "Hi, Lily," said the woman. After that, we got chatting, and I immediately liked them. They were so funny, and they didn't seem to mind my habit of lying. They visited for about 2 hours, and then by the end of it, they asked me a question that would change my life forever. "Lily, do you want to live with us as a family?" they asked. My heart welled with excitement. Yes, I thought. But then, before I could stop myself, a lie came out of my mouth. "No," I said. I started to shake my head in embarrassment and tried to tell them that I actually wanted to live with them, but the couple seemed to understand. We hugged and I started crying because finally I was going to have a family again. Fast forward 7 years later, and I was living happily with my adoptive parents. I didn't really remember my biological parents since it was so long ago, and I didn't want to remember them. They had abandoned me, and they're the reason why I can only lie and can't tell the truth. Meanwhile, growing up with my condition had been interesting, to say the least. I lied about everything. It was hard for me to find friends because who wants to be friends with a liar? Sometimes when boys asked me out, I would tell them I liked them when in reality I didn't. And when I actually liked a boy, I would tell them I didn't like them. Confusing, I know. Teachers didn't really like me that much either. I would lie about cheating on tests, and I would lie about doing homework. I would lie about everything. Honestly, I'm surprised I even made it through high school. However, my parents, my adoptive parents, were so understanding. I was so grateful for them because they were the only people in my life who truly understood me. They knew all about my traumatic past, and that was why they were able to cope with my lying habit. They even managed to understand my lies in conversation. Here's an example. My dad and I were driving home in the car from school. "How was your day?" Dad asked. "Amazing," I lied. "Oh, really? What went wrong?" he asked in understanding. "Nothing," I lied again. "Was it Samantha? Don't tell me she insulted you again," he said. "No." "What did she say?" "She told me I was so beautiful." "Ugly. But don't listen to her, Lily. She's just jealous." See what I mean? My parents were the best. They could understand me even when I was only telling lies. Things were running smoothly. It seemed that maybe I could have a nice life. But then something happened that turned my world upside down. It was a Sunday night. I was asleep in my bedroom. Suddenly, I woke up and I sat up in my bed. Everything was quiet. I was about to go back to sleep when the window opened up and 2 people climbed in. I was about to scream, but one of them quickly covered my mouth and my scream came out muffled. I couldn't see them clearly in the dark, but one of them turned the light on and I was shocked to see my biological parents. "What are you doing here?" I asked in shock. It was my dad who had his hand over my mouth and he spoke up. "I'm going to take this hand off. If you make any sudden movements, you'll be sorry. Don't speak, don't move, don't shout." "Got it?" I nodded. He released me and I sat up on my bed, terrified. "What do you want?" I asked. My parents were staring at me with something that looked like hatred. I noticed they looked much older than I last remembered, and I guess that must have been because it had been 7 years since I last saw them. "You're coming with us," said my mom. "What? Why?" My dad cleared his throat. "There are some people who are after us. You see, when we sold you all those years ago, we kept the money. But the guy never managed to keep you, the idiot. Anyway, some bad people are after us again, demanding we pay them back. But we've already spent the money, so we're just going to sell you off again." I almost couldn't believe my ears. "They're selling me again? You can't do this," I said. "I love you." I was so annoyed at my lying habit because that last bit was supposed to come out as "I hate you." My parents didn't notice my lie. "Yeah, we don't love you, so come on, we're leaving." They moved forward to grab me, but suddenly footsteps sounded outside. I felt relief swarm in me because of my parents. My adoptive ones were here. They opened the door. My biological parents quickly darted into the closet and hid there. This was my chance to be free of them once and for all. "Hi, honey," said Mom. Dad was standing behind her. "We thought we heard voices. Are you okay?" "Yes, I'm okay," I lied. I wanted to hit myself. Why did I have to lie in that moment of all moments? "All right, good night," they said. "Good night," I replied. When they left, my biological parents came out from the closet. "Good job. It was smart not to tell them," said my mom. Then they grabbed me and tied me up. I never hated myself more than that moment. I could have been freed, but I just had to lie, didn't I? That night, they carried me out of the window and into a van. I had flashbacks to when I was 8 years old, when the same thing had happened to me. Eventually, the van pulled to a stop, and my parents grabbed me and took me into a house. They carried me down to a basement, and then they tied me to a chair. "Stay here," they said roughly. They left, and I was all alone. Days passed, and nothing happened for a while. My biological parents, or should I say my kidnappers, would come down every now and then to feed me, but that was it. I was so scared. What was going to happen to me? I didn't want to be sold off. I missed and loved my adoptive parents. I never wanted to see them more in my life. Then the day came when my buyers arrived. It was just one man, and he came down in the basement to find me. I suddenly recognized him as the one who had taken me all those years ago. He must have already served his time in jail. "Well, well, well," he said as he inspected me. "You should sell for a lot." My adoptive parents were upstairs. The man knelt beside me. "Listen, girl, I need you to tell me. Does anyone else know about this?" he asked. I sensed an opportunity and I grabbed hold. "Yes," I lied. "The police know. My biological parents are double-crossing you. They faked this transaction so that the police can catch you again." I had lied for most of my life, and I had gotten very good at it. Naturally, the man believed me. "What?" he cried out in surprise. Then he looked upstairs. "That's it. I'm getting them back. Thanks for telling me, little girl." He disappeared upstairs, and I heard shouting. Suddenly, a fight seemed to break out because things were being smashed and voices were yelling. They were so loud. And then I heard a knock on the door. I realized that must be the neighbors. They must have heard their loud voices. I screamed and screamed, and suddenly the voices started shouting again. What I didn't realize, but later found out, was that the neighbors were actually fighting my biological parents, and the man too. The police were called, and I was miraculously freed. I am now back with my adoptive parents. My lies somehow managed to get me both kidnapped and freed. I am working hard with my therapist to control my lying habit. I think I'm getting better, and the fact that I can tell this story proves it. Oh, and by the way, if you think this story was fake since I can only tell lies, know this. This story is 100% true.
I was a total dreamer. My head was always in the clouds, and most of the time I was thinking about the perfect relationship. I lived, breathed, and ate soap operas, and I had billions of love songs saved on my computer and phone. I read nothing but romance novels in class, and most of my teachers were frustrated with me for never paying attention to anything they said. I was too caught up in my fantasies to care. But before I continue my interesting story, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. If you do, your crush will finally like you back. I was 16 years old and I had a few boyfriends in the past, but we never lasted more than 2 months. I always ended up finding someone else more interesting, and I was frustrated that they did not live up to the characters in my books and movies. I don't even know how this started. It's not like I have psychological issues or anything. I came from a normal household with a mom, dad, grandparent, and siblings. We always had enough stuff, and I was a typical daddy's girl. He bought me anything I wanted.
Valerie, I know I give you everything, but I think it's about time you became a little more independent,
he said to me one night. What do you mean? I asked.
You can start saving money for college. Why not find a part-time job? I think you spend too much time watching soap operas and reading silly books,
he replied. I couldn't believe my dad suggested this. I was his little princess and he wanted me to work? Fend for myself? Ugh. Anyway, I could only work after school and on weekends, so at first it was really difficult to find a part-time job that would accept me. I was just about to give up when the owner of a little coffee shop at a university campus said, "You're hired." Really? I asked, half disappointed because I really wanted to report to my dad that no one would hire me, hoping he'd change his mind. Then the door opened and my heart literally stopped.
Hey, Aiden, come meet your new apprentice. Valerie, this is Aiden. He works here too,
my new boss said. At that moment, I knew I was destined to be right there with the most perfect-looking guy in the universe. What a hunk! Hi, I blushed.
Hello, beautiful.
He winked and I totally melted.
I'll show you the ropes today,
he said, and I felt like this was going to be the best day of my entire life. I was so nervous around Aiden that day that I spilled 3 cups of coffee, one on the kitchen counter, one on a customer, and one all over my new apron. It was so embarrassing. While I tried to wash my apron off in the sink, Aiden approached me with a smile.
Maybe it's just first day jitters. You'll have a better day tomorrow,
he said. Yeah, I guess, I replied, totally hiding the fact that it was all his fault.
Hey, I was wondering, could I have your number? We can talk about work stuff,
he said while laughing. It really was the best day of my life. I gave him my number, and when my shift was over, I skipped all the way home feeling like I was in the clouds. My dad was super happy that I'd found a job too.
That's my girl, she's independent,
he said while he did a ridiculous little dance. That night, Aiden called. We spoke for about 2 hours straight. I found out that he was a student on the same campus where we worked. We were the same age, but he was just super smart and was able to leave high school really early.
Do you have a boyfriend?
He asked suddenly. No, I replied.
Well, I know this is weird because I just met you today, but would you like to go out on a date with me sometime?
He asked. Yes, I said almost too quickly.
Wonderful,
he replied. Aiden and I went to a concert that weekend, and then we went back to his house to watch a movie. It was perfect, and I couldn't stop staring into his eyes. It seemed like he felt the same way about me too. I saw him every day when I worked at the cafe, and we continued dating steadily. Eventually, he asked me to be his girlfriend, and I said yes. I was pretty certain that he was the one for me. He was perfect. I'm not sure if it's because I rushed into a relationship too quickly, but after a while I began to notice things about him that weren't so perfect. I was in his room one afternoon. We'd just finished playing video games, and I decided I wanted to take a nap. He was right next to me playing on his phone. I closed my eyes for a few minutes, but I couldn't fall asleep. I opened my eyes slightly and noticed that Aiden was browsing through his Instagram feed. There was something strange about this, though. Every single picture was of a super hot model. These girls were unbelievably beautiful. But do you know what? He liked every single picture. I was so angry. I opened my eyes and snatched the phone away from him. Am I not enough for you? I screamed.
What do you mean? I'm only innocently scrolling through Instagram. What is wrong with you?
He asked, trying to make me feel like I was the crazy one. I scrolled some more and saw hundreds of more beautiful girls. I checked to see which account he was using and realized that it was a secret account which I did not know about. Why do you even have this account, and why are you keeping secrets from me? I hate you! I screamed and threw his phone on the floor. Then I walked out of his house and went home. We weren't talking to each other for 2 whole weeks. It was extremely awkward at work. Then one day, he sent a dozen flowers to my house with a note that said,
"So sorry, can we please talk?"
Ooh, someone sent you flowers. Why don't you invite him over? My mom said innocently. I was annoyed, but I called him anyway. Thank you for the flowers. You can come over to my house later to talk. It's time for you to meet my parents anyway, I said. He agreed. When he came over later, my whole family was waiting to meet him. I never told them about our fight, of course. They were just under the impression that he was my boyfriend. When we were finally alone in my room, he said,
"Well, I have a problem. In fact, I'm not even sure if it's a problem. I'm obsessed with models. I love their hair, lips, body, clothes, everything. They're a work of art, really, and I just enjoy staring at them. This doesn't mean I love you any less, but they were sort of there before you. It's always been my thing. Still, you're everything I need.
But if I'm everything you need, then why do you need to follow these models? I asked.
It's an addiction, I guess. I can't stop,
he replied sadly. We decided to give our relationship a second try, but I was still depressed about his addiction. I kept wondering if something was wrong with me. I didn't feel as pretty as these other girls. What could I do so I'd be enough for him? I kept thinking. He was my perfect guy after all. I didn't want to lose him. So one day, I felt like I had no choice. I made a new Instagram account and began thinking of suggestive poses I could post. I got all my beautiful clothes and took hundreds of pictures. I posted the hottest ones and sent the account to my boyfriend. I waited a while for his response. My phone rang.
Whoa, Valerie, I love your new page. I didn't know you could be so hot. Wow,
he said. So you like it? I asked.
I love it. I'm going to share your page with all my friends. You're going to be a hit. The newest Instagram model in town,
he said. I was a little surprised that my boyfriend would want to share my pictures with his friends, but I tried not to think too hard about it. Before I knew it, I had 500 followers and it really fueled my ego. I decided I'd have to post more pictures so I could get more likes and followers. So I did just that. My relationship with Aiden was improving. He seemed to be very proud to be in a relationship with me. Whenever we went out, he'd tell people about my Instagram page and ask them to follow. Then one night after work, he sat next to me while I was drinking a cup of coffee.
Valerie, I think your pictures are getting a bit, boring,
he said. What do you mean? I asked.
Well, models don't usually cover everything, if you know what I mean. Your poses are nice and your clothes are too, but have you ever considered modeling swimsuits?
He replied. Well, I've always been a bit self-conscious and I don't like to show too much skin. You know that, Aiden, I said, disappointed.
Well, I think you should just try them and you'll see how wrong you are. You've nothing to be self-conscious about, trust me. I bought you a few bikinis and you can come over now to try them on. I'll take the pictures,
he said. I went over to his house and tried the first one on. It was a black swimsuit. He asked me to pose and he took a few photos.
See, you're so beautiful. I think you should post this right now,
he said. I looked at the picture and wasn't fully convinced, but I posted it anyway because I didn't want him to be upset with me. That picture got thousands of likes within a few hours and my followers increased. He convinced me to try on the other suits and I took many more pictures. The next week, we went to the beach just so I could pose in them. After posting these pictures, I got some emails from bikini companies. They wanted to send me their stuff so I could take pictures in them and promote their brands. They offered to pay $100 for each picture.
Oh my gosh, that's great. You get free swimsuits and cash,
my boyfriend said. He seemed happier than I was. So that is how I started making money doing something I didn't really enjoy. Aiden convinced me to give him some. He said that if it weren't for him, I wouldn't have had these opportunities in the first place. I figured he was right. I would have never done this on my own. Apparently, guys really love swimsuit pictures. Before I knew it, I had over 200,000 followers. Aiden was so happy, and one day, in the middle of a photo shoot, he had another idea.
I heard that there's a modeling agency in town. They're looking for beautiful women. The audition is tomorrow at 10 in the morning,
he said. But I have school, I replied.
It won't hurt to miss one day. Come on, I'll pick out the outfits,
he said, and I eventually agreed. The next day, I did something I never imagined myself doing, walking in a swimsuit in front of a bunch of strangers who were judging my face and body. And do you know what? I was hired. The pay was almost 10 times higher than what I was making in the cafe. We won't get to work together anymore, I said sadly.
That's fine, you're making so much more money for us,
he replied. I started skipping school to go to photo shoots. I was way behind and my grades were falling, but I was happy, I think, because I had the perfect boyfriend and I was making loads of money. I thought that because I became a model, he was more obsessed with me than anyone else. He told me he deleted his secret Instagram page and that he wasn't following those women anymore. I believed him. Until Aiden and I were in his room talking and he got up to go to the bathroom. I touched my ear and realized that my earring was missing, so I started looking on the floor. I knelt down near the bed and what I saw under there was shocking. There were tons of magazines with suggestively dressed women on the covers. I pulled one out and flipped through it. It was filled with pictures of models. I pulled another magazine out and saw the same thing. It became obvious to me that he was still obsessed with looking at pictures of other women and nothing I did mattered to him.
What are you doing?
He asked as he walked in on me going through his magazines. Why do you have those? I asked.
It's none of your business what I have in my room,
he said. I stormed out of his room and walked home. When I opened my front door, I heard a voice behind me.
Wait, please don't go.
Aiden had followed me. "Leave me alone," I screamed. My dad opened the door.
"Honey, why are you screaming? Oh my gosh, why are you crying? What's wrong?"
he said. I hadn't even realized I'd been crying. At that point, I was just sick of everything. I told my dad everything I had been through in the past few months with Aiden. I looked at his face and realized I'd never seen him that angry before.
"You gave him your money? The money you earned?"
He screamed.
"Come here, stupid boy,"
he said to Aiden. Aiden walked up to him. My dad pulled him inside and threw him on the couch.
"Valerie, go upstairs and get your swimsuits,"
he said. I did as he asked. My dad then forced Aiden to wear them and took many pictures. He forced Aiden to upload them to his own Instagram page, then asked him to get out of our house. Aiden and I broke up because I realized that I was being manipulated by a guy who didn't really love me. I don't model anymore, and my dad hasn't forced me to get another job. He thinks this was all his fault, and I'm not upset he feels that way. It means I'm his little princess again, and I can get whatever I want.